All right, welcome back to Mind and Magic. It's going to be a little bit different today. As most of you know, Iran had retaliated against Israel, and I usually don't talk about foreign excursions, but people were kind of wanting to know whether or not this is the start of World War III. So let's get into it.
Why?
So I was born in 1971. And grew up during the last part of the Cold War. So I'm no stranger to living under the threat of thermonuclear destruction. It's always been in the background. All through the 80s, Russia was the big bad. They could strike at any time. But back then it was sort of a hollow threat because there was mutually assured destruction. If anyone launched, the other side would also launch and everyone would be destroyed. And we were much more in danger of an error occurring and something going wrong, which I have heard tell that it had gotten close a couple times. But that was then and this is now. And the difference between then and now is that now people are out of their minds. Now, I could say back in the day that no one had the gumption to push the button, but these days, you can't tell. The lunatics have taken over the asylum, so to speak, and have for a while. The players on the world stage are much different than those who had come before. And I can't really say that I could trust them not to, unfortunately. But a lot of things have to happen for the world to descend an all-out global war. Unfortunately, Iran and Israel at war is one of them, because both of those countries have treaties with other countries. Most notably, Israel is allied with the United States, and Iran is allied with Russia and China. And they all have nukes. So when one attacks the other, then they get pulled into the war because of their treaties, and then now the world can descend into chaos. There are certain flashpoints around the world that could serve as a trigger for a Third World War scenario. The Balkans is one of those places. Ukraine is one of those places. NATO's been poking the bear, like figuratively and literally, when threatening to allow Ukraine into NATO, because that is a threat to Russia having NATO right on their doorstep. They will not tolerate that. So all of these things happening together, both Ukraine and Israel and Iran, is not good. Now, Iran had hit Israel and then said, well, as long as they don't hit us back, we're done. So they were like, no tag backs. And if they don't, which they at this point have not at the time of this recording, then that may be the end of it. But knowing their response to Gaza, I doubt that they will let it go. And their leader Netanyahu has said as much, that they will retaliate. So this has the potential to escalate quickly. By the time this video is even posted, another retaliation could have happened. And by the time it's released on YouTube, no, we may not even be here by that time. We just don't know. 3 months from now, anything could happen. It really comes down to what the response is going to be and whether or not the U.S. gets involved. Now, a lot of people don't have much faith in this administration's foreign policy, especially after the cut and run from Afghanistan. But maybe that's exactly what they do here, not wanting to get involved. However, that's probably the least likely scenario, considering that the United States defends Israel at all costs, historically. So that may not be something that we can get away from. And the other part to watch for is if it becomes just a regional tit-for-tat thing where it's just retaliation after retaliation after retaliation, then that can go on for a while, at least until someone decides to use a nuke. If one of them feels that they're justified in using a nuclear device, as tempers keep rising and rising, and they do that, then we're going to have a major problem, because all bets are off at that point. That's when you know for certain that we're in World War III. So I'm making it a point to take some time away from our regularly scheduled programming here to ask that my listeners and followers make this a point of their practice, that cooler heads prevail in this situation, that if they go too far, it's not just the end of their enemies, but of themselves as well, and everybody else, so that they come to their senses. This technology should never have been made, and is still one of the greatest threats to life on this planet, especially now. We've never been closer to World War III in my lifetime, even throughout the entire Cold War, than we are right now. So I ask that you keep these conflicts mindful in your magic. And if you think that you don't have the power to influence things on a world stage, maybe not you alone, but together people can have an impact. Right now in the Godform tier on Patreon Subscribestar, King Solomon's wisdom is leading the vote in the poll, and I hope that it prevails, because I would extend it to our world leaders as well, to not go down this path of war. The greatest threat to humans on this planet are humans themselves. We can and often are our own worst enemies. I'm not at all interested in who started it. I'm not interested in taking sides. I'm not stepping into that hornet's nest. What I am interested in is cooler heads prevailing, that world leaders come to their senses and don't put everyone else in jeopardy, in an effort to prevent World War III. I urge everyone to participate this who can, and hopefully the world will calm down. And if not, well, it's been nice knowing you. And I want to thank everyone for listening, and I'll see you next time, provided there is one. Take care.